That's what the facts are. If you're finding evolution at every turn in college, it's because that's what the facts support. You have a right not to believe it, but you don't have a right to claim that just because something is written in your religion's holy book, that is magically a fact.
Okay, so, I mean, as I said earlier, Gentry is just a small number.
Yeah, one.
Those scientists who has supported it with his scientific evidence. And if they're, throughout time, we do have other scientists who keep studying and coming up with other things. And therefore, if they can present this.
Yes. The day that they present sufficient evidence for their claims, that's the day that they get taught in schools. That's the day that they are then justified you would be justified in believing them.
Right.
You believe them before then, you're just guessing.
Wow. All right. Well, that was a long call.
Yeah. And there's now all the lines are full and everybody's on hold, so let's see what we can get through. Dan in San Jose, you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Thanks for waiting. How you doing?
Pretty good. I'm an atheist, and I've been a long-time fan of the show. I do have a big bone to pick, though, with not specifically you guys, but atheists in general, the atheist community. I see there's a big problem in our approach to this whole discussion of theism and religion and whatnot. And so I would like to explain what my complaint is, and then I would like to propose a solution to it.
Okay, go ahead.
First is that logic is, of course, a human conception. It's what we try to use to understand the world around us, and it's a predictive sort of construct that we like to pose to address reality and the way things should be and the way they shouldn't be, how we debunk someone's argument and whatnot. But the problem that both atheists and theists often have is that they fail to realize that this is all based on our perception, that they tend to believe their perception of the world is based on their logic rather than the other way around. So it's fine and well to point out logical contradictions in someone's arguments, but if you aren't going to ever address the perception that leads them that sense of logic, I don't think we're going to get very far.
Logic is not predicated merely on our perceptions. The foundations of logic, the absolutes, are true irrespective of any mind or presence or ability to perceive them. That's how we identify fallacies with respect to validity. Fallacies with respect to soundness address the truth or falseness of the premises, and that is, of course, a matter of our ability to assess evidence from perception. But I mean, you're kind of making it sound like that it's kind of all up to how people want to look at the world, and that's simply not true.
Well, I don't mean to put it in that respect. I'm just trying to point out that when we produce a theory or a sort of explanation for the way things should be, it's typically based on our observations and the things that we can use to empirically examine the world around us, and the general things that kind of go along with that. But the thing I tend to find lacking is just that people don't tend to acknowledge that this whole discussion is based on the things that we use to examine the world around us. And so, I find that if you're going to basically, I find that atheists spend a lot of their time pointing out contradictions in theistic arguments, but they don't tend to spend any time trying to figure out why they contradict themselves. Telling a Christian that there's a contradiction in their belief system is like telling an alcoholic that they have a beer in their hand.
No, it's not. You think most Christians, for example, know that they have logically flawed arguments and that they're just going to believe anyway?
No, I'm saying...
Then it's not like that.
No, right.
Because most alcoholics would know that they have a beer in their hand, wouldn't you say?
Well, I would say that some of them are in too deep to understand what you're even telling them. So half the time they don't understand what you're saying, and the other half of the time they don't care.
I'm going to try to find something that I agree with in what you've been saying, okay? If what you are saying is that these discussions that atheists have with theists should include more of an explanation of where the theist is getting his ideas from in the first place,
Yes.
then sure. I mean, I think our last discussion, though, that went on for like, 45 minutes, got deeply into that territory. So maybe that's an example of the kind of thing you think we should be doing more of.
No, I think that there's an inherent paradox in the notion that an omnipotent being can demonstrate omnipotence and intelligence at the same time.
Okay, so what? You were saying that we need to be talking about.
Yeah, what does that have to do with
Yeah,
the other thing?
that has nothing to do with what you were just saying. You were saying that we should be exploring where the theists are getting their core ideas from, what perceptions they're having that leads them to the conclusions that they reach, as well as looking at the logic.
I mean,
And we
curiously,
did that. So now what?
Curiously to me is that you seem to be presenting a logical paradox as what you think we need to be addressing after talking about not addressing you lost me.
Well, for instance, I've watched several of your last episodes, and a lot of them were based on the topic of design. There's people perceive or people believe that they perceive the creation and the design of the universe and yada yada, and they're repeating their statements rather than having any substantive explanation for where they're getting their arguments from. And you ask them how they make the leap from saying that something appears to be designed to saying that it is designed.
Correct.
So the problem that I see is that the theists end up contradicting themselves because they don't realize that the notion that they can perceive this design is itself a perceptual paradox. That where I'm basically getting with this is that intelligence as a word, comes from the root words of enter and legere, meaning to choose between. It's a functional description of how we are able to accomplish things despite being not omnipotent. That for instance, when my basic explanation is that we base intelligence on an obstacle-goal relationship that operates at typically the subconscious level, so that which is why we intuitively put mice in mazes, because without limiting a mouse or providing a test, you can't see how much understanding they actually have. So you have to limit them to perceive their intelligence. So to perceive intelligence, something has to be limited. But they're arguing that God is not limited. So essentially, in saying that
Dan,
we can perceive...
Dan, I hate to be rude, couldn't possibly care less or agree less. And to define intelligence as saying it's a choice between things because we're not omnipotent, and therefore saying that it has a contradiction with omnipotence, is kind of, maybe there is a semantic paradox between intelligence and omnipotence. I don't know, but I also don't care, and I know that the only way to demonstrate it is to actually construct a logical syllogism and point out the fallacy there. So I don't know what the hell this has to do with what you first started talking about, nor do I know what it has to do with anything else, because I'm an atheist. I don't hold any theistic beliefs, and not all theists ascribe to this idea of omnipotence that you're talking about. So you're focused on one very little narrow thing and not being really clear about what your objection or improvement is.
Well, I'll submit that. Trying to explain, because I'm not saying that it's not possible for something to be intelligent and omnipotent at the same time. I'm saying that it's not possible for someone to perceive as much. So what I'm saying is that
wow.
Could I just cut in? I really think, Dan, what you ought to do is write this up as in the form of a logical argument.
Or even just an extended email.
Or, right,
yeah.
Well, not too extended. And send that into, what is the email address?
tv@atheist-community.org.
And we'll take a look at it. Well, but this is just going round and round and not coming out anywhere. And we have to proceed with the show.
And while I don't give a damn what the chat room has to say, I'm sure they're going nuts at this point.
Okay, well, I do have a YouTube video series that I just completed.
I'm sure
So
you
perhaps
did.
that would
I'm
be-
sure you do, but I'm not going to let you pimp it until after I read your email and understand what you're talking about.
I understand. I'll send that in.
Thanks, Dan.
All right, thanks.